Hi everyone, hello. Hi, sorry I am late. Oh my gosh, hello. Welcome everyone. Yes, there was technical issues. There was puppy drama. Just nonstop. There's always something. Am I right? And I'm so sorry if this is like going slow or glitching. I don't know. My internet looks like it's doing great. It might be my computer's about to shit out because I've had it for like 8 years. So listen, we're here. We're doing it. We're getting started. We're going to do the thing. And I'm so happy that you have joined because this is a big, this is a thing. This is a thing people have been talking about a lot, and I wanted to give some legal insight because I know that people have had questions. Let's jump right into it because I know you've been waiting and I appreciate your patience. Now, if my computer would load my notes for me. When it rains, it pours, am I right? Okay. All right. I think we've done it. I think we're ready to get going. My God. I also did a Peloton workout this morning and was one of those workouts where you don't stop sweating for like 2 hours afterwards. So that's why I look a little disheveled, but we're here, we're doing it. Let's get into it. So here we go. So the missing person case of Gabby Petito has taken social media by storm, especially TikTok, which is where I first heard of it. Everyone's decided to Nancy Drew the shit out of this, and I'm here to give a little bit of legal insight to what I can. This is an ongoing developing story, so I can only say or understand or analyze so much. You know what I mean? It was just reported yesterday that her body likely has been found near Grand Teton, and her boyfriend Brian Laundrie is still MIA. What rights does he have? What rights does his family have? Let's talk about all of your legal questions. Before we get started, if you're new here, my name is Leija. I'm a real life lawyer on a mission to demystify the law and how it affects your everyday life. That being said, I may be a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. Nothing that I say should ever be construed as legal advice, and you should always seek the advice of a licensed attorney before making any legal decisions, all right? Reminder that super chats and super stickers are enabled. Any money spent goes towards directly keeping these lights on and allowing me to bring you legal insights of current events and legal history every week. So thanks so much for your support in advance. Let's jump right in. Who the heck is Gabby Petito? For a little background in case maybe you're a little unfamiliar with this case. So this is her. She was 22 from Blue Point, New York. She loved to travel and spent many of the last few years documenting her travels around the US on her social media accounts. She met Brian Laundrie in high school. They started dating in March 2019, so they were together for a while. This is Brian Laundrie. He's 23, went to high school with Gabby. His parents now live down in Northport, Florida. The couple decided to do a cross-country road trip together out of Gabby's small Ford van. That's it. The van life thing that's been so glamorized over the last 5 to 10 years. I gotta say, I went through a really intense van life obsession back in 2015-ish. I think anyone who's ever been 23 in the last decade has done the same. There's something that seems really romantic about going off grid, but even if it doesn't turn deadly like it did here, there's truly nothing glamorous about it, I don't think. You're often sleeping in Walmart parking lots or literally in the middle of nowhere, which frankly is fucking creepy, and you gotta cook out of your van on a little stove, and then you either gotta poop in a compost toilet on board or constantly be terrified of having to pee in the middle of the night. No thanks. Sorry. And if I wasn't turned off by it enough already, this story certainly did me in. Anyway, so the couple leaves New York in June of this year, and they planned on arriving in Oregon in October. So a full 4-month road trip across the country. Throughout July and the first part of August, Gabby documented their travels on her Instagram. They go through Kansas and Colorado, and then they get to Utah. And here's a map. Because honestly, even though I live and am from the middle of the country, I still am endlessly confused by this country's geography. So here you go. Kansas to Colorado to Utah. Makes sense, right? All right. Then, on August 12th, The cops are called in Moab, Utah for some sort of domestic disturbance. Apparently the couple were fighting in a parking lot at one point. It's a little unclear what happened, but Gabby hit Laundry and kind of scratched him because she thought he was going to drive away in the van without her. He had locked her out of the van. She was trying to get back into the van. Then she managed to climb back in at some point, and then the couple drove off. And someone saw them like having this dispute in a parking lot and called the cops. So then they're fighting in the car and driving erratically. They're going 45 in a 15-mile-per-hour zone. And the cops find them and pull them over. They separate the two for questioning, and there's body cam footage of the incident. Gabby's crying a bunch. They say in the police report that she's like hysterical, and I don't think that. I think that it was a little. They wrote her off as being just this like hysterical woman. She was crying and clearly upset, but she wasn't like out of control. So. In case you haven't seen it, Laundry, totally fine. He's actually smiling. He's joking around with the cops. He's having a great old time. So Gabby, at one point, she says she has OCD and she's been having a really tough time with her mental health. I literally cannot imagine having OCD and living in a van with someone. Can you imagine how stinky and messy it gets in there and how out of control that would make you feel? I can only imagine how that would affect someone's mental health. Anyway, I watched the full over an hour long body cam video. It's linked below. Moira has joined us in the room, so if you hear snorting and anything bumping around, it's my dog. She'll probably make an appearance at some point. Okay, so I watched the full body cam video. They pulled the car over. The officer asks her to step out, asks what's going on. She says she's had a bad morning. She has OCD. She's been really stressed. That Brian stresses her out and that he wouldn't let her back in the van because he wanted her to calm down. Then the officer takes Brian aside and questions him. And Brian says that she was working on her little blog all morning and she just sometimes gets really out of control and worked up. And when she does that, he likes to distance himself from her and get her to calm down. And then he says at one point they swerved onto the curb right before they were pulled over. And he says he swerved because Gabby grabbed the steering wheel. The cop tells him to take a seat, goes back over to Gabby, who's telling a different cop that she had hit Brian because he had like grabbed her in the face, and she does this motion, like he had grabbed her like that. It's a little hard to follow exactly what happened in the altercation, but it was kind of like they were going at each other. But Brian did show the cops that he had like scratch marks on his face, or like he didn't say look, but the cops saw and documented it. So the cop who she's talking to then kind of like weirdly condescends to her by being like, when you have anxiety, you know, you can feed off each other. That happens with my wife and me. And, you know, you can just get out of control and end up in situations like this. And I don't know. He also asked if if Brian's usually patient with her, which like, it felt kind of like shamey and blamey and weird. And I don't know. I didn't like it, but clearly I'm biased. She then tells the cop that she did not touch the steering wheel while they were driving or grab it at all. She was kind of punching Brian in the arm because she was annoyed that they had gotten pulled over, but she claims that she did not touch the steering wheel. Then they go back to chat with Brian, and they're just like being chatty, you know, hanging with Brian, being chatty. And then all the cops, there's like 4 at this point, they step off to discuss the issue, to make an assessment. And they decide that she's the aggressor in this situation based on what the witness said and what the couple have told them, and the fact that he has visible signs of injury on his face. And they decide based on the statute that they have to charge her, and implement a no contact order, and that the Utah legislature doesn't give them any discretion on that, even if it's the woman who's the aggressor. But they say that she doesn't have to be arrested and spend the night in jail if the couple agrees to be separated. Then Brian would just have to go to the police department the next day and get the no contact order dropped. And then she'd still have an online court date for an initial appearance. But then the prosecutor can decide whether or not to actually pursue charges based on what they decide. And this is pretty typical. This is basically how it works. And I did find the Utah code. So we can take a look at that. Here's what it says. It's Utah Code 7736 2.2. When a peace officer responds to a domestic violence call and has probable cause to believe that an act of domestic violence has been committed, the peace officer shall arrest without a warrant or shall issue a citation to any person that the peace officer has probable cause to believe has committed an act of domestic violence. That word shall means must. Just so we're clear. In statute language, the word shall means you will do it. The peace officer has to do it. So basically it's saying if the officer has probable cause to believe that an act of domestic violence occurred, they have to either arrest or give a citation. All right. So then though, the officer goes up to her and like, he asks her what her intent was behind slapping Brian, if it was to cause him harm or something else. And she said it was never that. It was never to cause him harm. It was to get him to stop telling her to calm down, which is heartbreaking. But also, is that the law? No. It's not. It's not. The cop then gets back in a huddle with the other cops, and he starts reading the statute to figure out what the definition is of assault. He's basically trying to figure out if this can be considered assault. He's trying to find a workaround so he doesn't have to cite these two or cite her, because neither of them want this to happen. It's clear that like Brian doesn't feel threatened by her. Like he's much larger than she is. They can see that like clearly she's not a threat or a danger, but there is probable cause to believe that a domestic assault has occurred because there are visible like marks and wounds on his face, and witnesses saw it and they both admitted to it. And so technically they needed to have issued a citation based on the law. So they're trying to find a workaround. And so one of the cops starts reading the statute to figure out the definition of assault. But like, he doesn't read the right part of the definition of assault. He reads that assault is attempt with unlawful force or violence to do bodily injury to another. And he interprets this as being, well, she didn't attempt to hurt him. That wasn't her intent. So he's getting attempt and intent confused. So then this doesn't count as assault. That's not what that means. It means that there's a penalty if someone attempts to hurt another. This is the attempt portion of the statute. And if you read the whole thing, which I did, here it is. It says assault is an attempt with unlawful force or violence to do bodily injury to another, or an act committed with unlawful force or violence that causes bodily injury to another or creates a substantial risk of bodily injury to another. Part one is the attempt. So attempted assault, and then there's the actual assault. This wasn't a case of attempted assault. This was a case of actual assault because she actually did an act that caused bodily injury. Do I think that Brian Laundrie was the victim in this relationship? Obviously, we weren't there behind closed doors. Every relationship is really complicated, so I don't know, but as someone who has both worked with survivors of relationship abuse and been a survivor of relationship abuse, this is a story that I've seen and that I've lived. When your partner emotionally manipulates you, belittles you, doesn't take your pain or your anxiety or your work or whatever else seriously, doesn't make you feel heard or seen, and these are things that I don't know, but I noted as I was watching this body cam footage. She calls her blog, her little blog. She's like just working on her little blog. She says that he's constantly telling her to calm down and that she upsets him sometimes. He says that she just needs to calm down. He's kind of joking with the cops about, the wives. And it's just, and she is beside herself, and he is like happy-go-lucky chatty. And these are just some red flags. I am not a psychologist. I am not an expert, but these are some red flags of some manipulation and some relationship abuse, emotionally at least. And when you don't feel heard or seen by your partner, sometimes you shove or you slap or you claw out of frustration because you can't figure out with your words how to make them see or hear you. And as the person being abused, it's a really heartbreaking place to be in. And that doesn't make it okay to do those things, to hit or shove or slap or whatever to your partner. But I don't know, I just saw parallels in this story that I've seen in other situations where a woman is being emotionally abused. Take that with a grain of salt. Watch the video for yourself. Some people, the reason that I'm getting so in depth with this body cam footage is because some people are saying that if they had taken her into custody, then she would still be alive. And that's probably not a fair assessment. She would have spent one night in jail, and her initial hearing was going to be online due to COVID. So he could have gone to the jail the next day, waived the no contact order, and they would be on their merry way, and it would not have changed the timeline at all. Some people are saying that they should have stepped in and saved her from him. And like I said, there had to have been probable cause for any sort of relationship abuse, assault, or whatever to have been an arrestable thing. The little red flags that I just pointed out based on my own experience is just not enough to raise probable cause. It's enough to say like, that seems fishy, but it's not enough to arrest someone. You know what I mean? So I don't think that based on the body cam footage that I saw in my own non-expert analysis, I don't think they would have had probable cause to arrest him at all. Her, yes, because there's evidence of domestic assault, but there was not enough, in my opinion, to have probable cause to have arrested him based on that body cam footage. All right. So body cam footage, there's this long redacted section. One cop's like, but then after this redacted section, one cop's like, or we could just like give him the nod and the wink, tell him to just stay separated, and then just like not charge them. Which, like, first of all, has any black person in America ever gotten a nod and a wink from a cop before? Probably not. I mean, the racial elements to this are, we can talk about them, but if this was a black couple, I think that this situation would have been a lot different. Anyway, the cop eventually explains to Brian that because she didn't have intent to cause him pain, then it doesn't fit the law technically, so he's not going to cite her, which again, inaccurate application of the law. Anyway, so they don't cite her. They just separate them for the night. They each he goes to a hotel room. She takes the van. They separate. And then as far as we know, the couple, moves forward with their road trip. And as a reminder, this was on August 12th. On August 19th, the couple publishes their only YouTube video about van life. Then around August 24th, Gabby has what is to be her final FaceTime with her family. She tells them that they're heading towards Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming. And here is a map because I know you don't know where that is. So there it is. Then on August 25th, she posts a picture on her Instagram, which has an uncharacteristically short caption that just says Happy Halloween. She usually writes long, like, prose type captions. People have thought it was pretty suspicious given that it didn't seem like her at all to post that way, but like, I don't know, could be a conspiracy theory, could be a clue. So that's August 25th. Then a few days go by, and on August 30th, Gabby's parents receive a text from her phone that just says, no service in Yosemite, which is also uncharacteristic of her, just the way that she texts. But also, they said that they were headed for Wyoming and Yellowstone. Yosemite is in California, so this doesn't make sense why they would have gotten that. What's really wild, though, so that was August 30th that they received that text from Gabby. The day before that, apparently it's being reported, a gal named Miranda on TikTok has reported that she picked up Brian Laundrie in Grand Teton National Park on August 29th, and he was not with Gabby. He was hitchhiking. So she sends that text on the 30th that they're heading to Yosemite. He's in Grand Teton on the 29th, the day before that, hitchhiking. He offers the people that picked him up while he was hitchhiking, he offers them $200 to drive him to Jackson, which is south of the park, and it's where they were headed, so they take him in. Then at some point, he gets kind of freaked out, because I don't know if he just didn't realize where he was headed, or where Jackson was, or what, but he asks them to pull over immediately, and he gets out. It's really unclear. It's sketchy. Maybe at this point, though, there could be an explanation. They had gone their separate ways. It could be that they just decided to separate, right? That could be a reasonable explanation, up until last night when they found her remains near Grand Teton, near that dam where he got off while he was hitchhiking. So it's not a legal opinion, but seems bad, right? What's even worse is that Brian then heads home to Florida in the van, and he gets home on September 1st. He tells no one. He doesn't alert authorities. He doesn't do anything. He is without Gabby, heads home, doesn't tell anyone. And then it's not until September 11th that her family officially realizes that she's missing and files a missing person report. All right, then last Tuesday on September 14th, Laundrie goes missing as well. He's currently believed to be deep in a nature preserve near his parents' house. It's like 25,000 acres, so like a lot of ground to cover, and the search is ongoing. The search didn't start until Saturday morning because his family didn't alert anyone that he was on the run or missing, who knows, until Friday night. So he's been gone since Tuesday. They didn't tell anyone since Friday, so the search started on Saturday, and now it's Monday. And also, though, a couple days ago, a YouTube couple was reviewing their footage that they took of them driving. Like, just this couple that makes YouTube videos. They were taking footage, rolling footage of them just driving. And they realized they were in Grand Teton. They captured Gabby's van on video. So they find it, they locate where they were when they captured that, and then they turn that information over to authorities, who then search that area, and it's near where Gabby's remains are eventually found. I have, like, goosebumps right now. YouTubers being sleuths, solving mysteries. No big deal. Anyway, so Gabby's remains have likely been found as of last night, though it hasn't been 100% confirmed, but her family has been notified. And now the search will continue for Brian, who is the number one person of interest in this case at this point. And that's where we're at. I've gotten a ton of questions about this case. I'll try to cover everything. A lot of the questions revolve around why the cops didn't get a warrant for an arrest or to search the house immediately when they discovered Gabby was missing. A warrant to arrest Brian. As to the arrest, a cop has to have probable cause that a crime has been committed by the person being arrested. At the time, September 11th, when Gabby was found to be missing, it wasn't completely baseless for a cop to determine that there was no probable cause that a crime had been committed by Brian or by anyone. They didn't have a body. They didn't have evidence that a crime occurred. It was possible, she hadn't been in contact. No one knew where she was. She could have gone off on her own. She could have run away from home. She could be doing this of her own accord. Of course, these explanations now sound a little improbable given Brian's behavior maybe, but it's totally possible that authorities looked at the totality of the circumstances and were like, there's no evidence of a crime here. We can't just arrest someone without probable cause that a crime has been committed by that person. We don't even know if a crime has been committed at this point. On top of that, the crime would have occurred outside of Florida, in Grand Teton, in Wyoming. Cops in Florida don't have authority to investigate or arrest out-of-state crimes, which is why the FBI are now involved, because this is a cross-state, national thing at this point. People have argued that at least a search warrant should have been obtained, which I do find more convincing, because you still need probable cause to obtain a search warrant, but there has to be probable cause to believe there may be evidence of a crime in the house. Which feels more attainable in this situation than to have probable cause to believe that Brian himself committed a crime. You know what I mean? It's a fine line, but it's very possible that they could have successfully argued, hey, he's a person of interest. She hasn't been heard from her family. It's not normal for her. He was the last person with her. He was her partner, which is often the person that perpetrates crimes against the other partner. It's reasonable to think we may find evidence of the commission of a crime inside this house. We have probable cause, therefore we have this warrant. This may have given them earlier clues as to her whereabouts if they had done this. Again, though, because this alleged crime didn't occur in Florida, who knows, it might have been an issue as to federal versus state authority in this situation. If you hear snoring, that is Moira. She has decided, instead of laying in her puppy bed, to lay directly beneath me in the microphone. All right. So many people have also asked why they didn't take him into custody for questioning. Again, that would require an arrest, which they didn't have because they didn't have evidence of a crime. It requires probable cause. They definitely asked him to come in for questioning, and he refused, which is suspicious, but not against the law. But they couldn't force him in for questioning unless they arrested him. I have also gotten questions about why Brian is allowed to not speak to authorities. And again, he wasn't arrested. You can't be forced to speak to authorities unless they arrest you. And even then, you have the 4th and the 5th Amendments to protect you. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right not to incriminate yourself. He does not have to speak, even if he was arrested. And your frustration with him being able to get away with this is valid, but also consider the other way around. The authorities being able to force people to speak without having probable cause that they committed a crime, or forcing them to speak, period, when you're innocent, for example. As much as our system does, in practice, fail to actually protect innocent people, we do have a number of rules in place to try to protect the innocent, to ensure that they remain innocent until proven guilty. Are these protections, the 4th and 5th Amendment protections, evenly or properly implemented in practice? Absolutely not. I'm just saying that that's the ideal, and he's benefiting from those protections. And yes, it's horrible. This situation is horrible, but I'm not sure I want to live in a society where these protections don't exist. You know what I'm saying? It's a fine line. I don't want to live in a society where the cops don't need probable cause to search or arrest me. You know what I mean? Again, in practice, probable cause means something different when you're black or brown or an immigrant or poor. But technically, we have these protections in our country for a reason. All right. And then a lot of you have questions about Brian's attorney, because he does have an attorney who's been making statements on behalf of the family. Many of you are questioning whether the attorney has to tell authorities if Brian admits to doing it, or if he was required to tell authorities that Brian had gone on the run. Not only is the lawyer not required to tell authorities that Brian admitted to it, if he did, he is expressly barred from telling authorities that Brian admitted to it, if he did. It's called attorney-client privilege, and it is strictly protected by the rules of professional responsibility and by the rules of evidence. There are limits to these rules of attorney-client privilege. Like if the client tells an attorney that they are about to imminently commit a crime, the lawyer has to tell authorities. But if the client admits to a crime and the lawyer is representing them, the lawyer can't tell on the client. Because we want people to have complete trust in their lawyers so lawyers can get all the information that they need to then properly represent the client. If a client thought that the lawyer was going to be able to just go to authorities and be like, yeah, he told me he did it, like there's no trust there. As to Brian being on the run, this is a little shadier. And because we're still dealing with attorney-client privilege, we will never know what he actually told his attorney or how much the lawyer knew. Could very well be that the lawyer knew nothing about what his plans were, that he disappeared, or didn't know that anything was amiss until he made that announcement, until the family told him days later. Could have been that the family and the lawyer genuinely believed that he was missing, not on the run, which isn't a crime. And maybe he didn't disclose it because this information, he considered it to be attorney-client privilege. Like my client is missing. Let's just give the family a couple moments to like grieve or something. However, if Brian told him that he was planning on running and the lawyer believed that he was about to do so, still technically, I don't think the lawyer would have had any duty to disclose that. Because Brian, again, at the point that he disappeared last Tuesday, he was not under arrest. He was a person of interest, yes. That does not make you a suspect. That does not make you under arrest. It just means that the cops are saying like, hey, yeah, this person seems like they might have been involved, but we are still gathering evidence. So he was not under arrest. He was a person of interest. So him jumping town, as far as I know, at that point last Tuesday would not have been a crime. All right? So I don't think that even if he had told his attorney, then I don't think his attorney would have had a duty to tell anyone. This is a little technical. The main rule of professional responsibility that is implicated here is the one that says an attorney can't condone the commission of a crime. So an attorney can't say, yeah, go do that. That's fine. I think you'll be fine. But the attorney can give a legal analysis of what someone's proposed course of action might entail, even if that course of action is illegal or maybe might be bad. This is the little technical shit that the show Better Call Saul gets at really, really well. There's the line between, like, where's the line between a lawyer condoning crime versus just advising as to the legal consequences of a crime? You know what I mean? It's blurry. But I am not accusing his lawyer of doing that or of breaking any professional rules of conduct here. Honestly, I'm pretty sure because he was not under arrest, then this falls under attorney-client privilege and he wasn't required to disclose anything. And then finally, people have been asking, and I see that someone just asked this, could Laundrie's parents be charged with any crimes if this is a case where they hid him or helped him? Again, I don't think so. If he had been a fugitive, yes. There are, if you hide or assist a fugitive, help them escape, you are guilty of a crime in most states and federally. However, again, he was not under arrest last Tuesday when he fled or went missing, whatever the case may be. You have to be a fugitive in order to be aiding and abetting a fugitive. You know what I mean? So if he wasn't an arrest, he wasn't a fugitive. They weren't aiding and abetting anything, you know? So as far as my analysis goes, again, I do not have the insight into this case. I don't have all of the background information. This is an ongoing investigation. But based on what my understanding of the case, he wasn't under arrest. He wasn't in custody. They didn't tell him not to leave, so him leaving or going missing or whatever happened was not a crime. So the fact that his parents didn't disclose it, maybe not a chargeable offense. So those are the answers to a lot of those questions. So last night, again, very quickly after finding what is supposed to be Gabby's remains, the FBI were at Brian's house. They have taken some things into custody, some items, and I imagine if they haven't already, I Googled, searched, and I didn't see anything on this yet. So I don't know that they have yet issued a warrant for his arrest, but I imagine that they will be shortly, because there is probable cause at this point. Now that they have a body and that they know that a crime has been committed, likely, they have probable cause at this point to arrest him. At which point, he would become a suspect, a wanted man, and a fugitive until they find him. And this is really dark, and I'm sorry, but I don't think they're gonna find him. I have a feeling if they do find him, he won't be alive. And that's the story as it stands. Hopefully I've answered some of your questions, but let's jump into some questions now in the chat if you have them. Reminder that super chats and super stickers are enabled. Anything you spend is greatly appreciated. It goes towards literally keeping the lights on in here. While you think about your questions, I do want to give a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters. Yes, I have a Patreon. We do behind the scenes stuff. We chat. We do live streams that are private over there. We got all sorts of stuff going on. It's a fun community. Please consider joining. Link in the description below. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters, specifically to Janina Gunderson, Vincent Nijin-Huis, Andrew Moores, Stephanie Powell, and Melissa Hubler. Your support means so much to me. And then also an extra special thank you to my multi-platinum patrons, Brett Piontek and Anonymous. You know who you are. Thank you so much for your support. Very much appreciate it. Let's see. People are asking some questions. So let me see what okay, this is not a legal opinion. Why do you think he won't be alive? I don't know. It seems like it's a little unhinged of him to have gone on the run to begin with, and he's in the middle of this 25,000 acre nature preserve or something in Florida, which seems not like the most hospitable location. And he also, I think, suffered from some mental health things, and I think maybe he will, decide to go out by taking his own life. Those are my thoughts, but that is not a legal opinion at all. If his parents helped him get away, now that he's likely considered a fugitive or has a warrant, would it still be considered legal for them to stay quiet? Yes. Like I said, unless you are under arrest, the authorities can't force you to speak, and even if you are under arrest, you have the 4th and 5th Amendments protecting you. So they can't force the family to speak. And they have, at this point, as far as I know, no evidence that the family has done anything wrong. Because again, even though they didn't share that he had been missing, when he went missing, he was not under arrest. He was not wanted by the law. So I don't believe that they committed a crime there. So I think that yes, they can stay quiet. Interesting. I don't know, man. This guy is a narcissist. There's no way a narcissist would off themselves. Maybe. Who's to say? Maybe I'm being cynical. Let's see. No, I don't think that they should have charged. So we got so if they would have charged like they should, she might still be alive. Can the family sue the police? I don't think that they had probable cause to charge him with anything until they found her body, frankly. I don't think they had the evidence. I think that he certainly was suspicious, which is why he was a person of interest, but I don't think that they had probable cause to have charged and arrested him. And even if they had, she might not still be alive, because he had arrived in Florida already before they even realized that she was missing. If there is some sort of misconduct on the part of the police that the family can identify, perhaps they can sue the police at this point. Based on what I've seen, I don't know that there would be any sort of case that could be brought against the cops. I'm not seeing any like officer misconduct, anything rising to that level of this point. Some people have asked about families suing the family of Brian Laundrie or the police or things like that. And like, yes, I think potentially the family of Gabby might have some sort of tort civil claim against the family of Brian Laundrie, potentially, for this, maybe. I would have to like look through the options and see if they really have much of any claim to make, but they certainly don't have anything criminal against the family at this point, I don't think, but potentially the family might be able to bring a civil lawsuit in the future for this. If for some reason Brian is found alive, which again, I don't think he will be because I'm being cynical, if he's found alive, he will obviously be charged. I'm assuming will be charged with her murder, but then her family could also sue him in civil court for like wrongful death and for the loss of consortium with her. So there could be, future lawsuits on top of the criminal one. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, how big of an impact on the investigation and legality of this case are on the amount of state borders this crosses. So this is why the FBI is involved, because I talk about this in my Ted Bundy reaction video that I made, but when a criminal, we don't know yet what, when someone crosses state lines in the commission of a crime, states individually are just really bad at like coordinating and trying to find that person or prosecute that crime. Then the FBI steps in, and that is why they step in, because they are equipped to handle national things, and when it crosses state lines, it becomes a federal issue. So that's why the FBI are involved. Finding the maintenance of evidence and things like that is a lot easier when the FBI is involved, because again, they're more equipped to deal with this kind of thing. However, I mean, I have also read, she was out in the wilderness, and who knows how much harm to the evidence could have happened in the time that she was out there. We don't know how long yet, because the autopsy hasn't been performed yet. It will be performed tomorrow on Tuesday. Yes, sorry. The snoring is Moira. So sorry. She's always be snoring. You know what I mean? Hi, Catherine. Yes. Welcome. Thank you. All right. I'm just trying to see. Thank you so much for the super stickers. Yeah, I mean, this is a great question too. Why this lack of sympathy for her pain is not a red flag for the police. They have no training for these cases. They have some training. I mean, it's like every police department is different in the amount of training that they give their officers, base for like domestic violence and assault type things. I worked for volunteered with an organization here in Minnesota that does like domestic violence outreach, and it was this shelter and all of that, and they did special trainings for the cops on how to handle domestic assault issues from a like relationship abuse, like wheel of power and control understanding. And so that was like a nonprofit coming in and doing it special. So like if a locality doesn't have that kind of training available from a nonprofit, it might not get it. They are trained in like, what is the definition of assault? What does it look like? How are you supposed to respond to an assault or a domestic call? But not like, what are the signs, the subtle signs of manipulation based on the Duluth wheel of power and control, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google wheel of power and control and you'll see it. It's actually a really eye-opening thing to look at if you've never looked at it. You don't often realize what abuse looks like until someone has to tell you, because especially as women, we're not trained to know when we're not being treated well. Okay. So I'm going to wrap this up because we've been talking for a while here. Moira is snoring like crazy. I'm going to give you guys a little puppy palate cleanser for my little snoring angel. Come here, baby. Oh, sleepy girl. Oh my God, she's getting so heavy. Oh, is that so nice? Are you such a sleepy baby? This is Moira. We're gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining, for all your questions, for your super stickers, and your support. Look at that. She's sleepy. Oh, sweet girl. All right. Thank you so much again for your support. Thank you for joining. Continue your questions in the comments section. I'll be checking them and I can answer there as well. But thanks so much for joining, and I hope you guys have a great week. All right. Bye.